1.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the North Shore Mums Facebook Live. Today we are talking about toddlers and nutrition and the link with immunity, and I'm very excited to be joined by two experts here today who are going to give us lots of knowledge and information over the next half an hour or so about what we should be feeding our kids and why good nutrition is just so important for immunity. To my right, I have got Nick Loveridge, who's the head of science at Denine Nutricia, and he's also a St Ives dad. You've got 2 kids and 1 on the way.
2.5 kids.
2.5 kids.
Yes. Yeah, 2.5 kids.
2.5. One in the womb.
Yes, yeah, almost here.
Yeah, and also to my left, we've got Karina from Smartbite, who is a nutrition expert. You've been in the industry for 15 years. Mm-hmm. She's also a North Shore mum, living in Mossman, and you've got 2 kids?
Yes, I have 2 little ones. One who's just started school this year, and another little one who's just started preschool this year.
Aww,
yeah.
So hands full. I think we've all got our hands full.
Yeah.
Between us.
Bags under the eyes as well.
3 to 5, 7.5. 7.5 kids.
Yeah.
So we're well experienced with feeding little ones. So the reason we are here, it's brought to us by Denine because they did some research recently all around the topic of toddlers and nutrition. And what were you kind of looking at in that survey?
We were just looking really to see what the key issues or concerns or points of interest are around nutrition and the immune system and those early days of life.
Yeah.
And some hot topics come up because I think it's quite an interesting area for all parents, all
yeah.
granddads.
And we're all looking at, we all want to feed our kids really good food.
Exactly, yeah.
And we know it's important, but we just want to know
It's
how to do it. And
yeah. Nutrition is always high on the agenda, I think.
Absolutely,
Kids. Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
So today, while we're live, you guys can post questions in the comments field, and we've got our own little questions that we're going to ask. A lot of stuff that's come up quite a lot in the North Shore Mums Facebook group, but feel free to ask any questions while we're here. We've got the pros, and they're at our disposal to answer all those questions. Exactly. So we will get started. The big question, Karina, how is immunity built?
Immunity. So when we think about immunity, often we think about outside influences and exposure to germs in building immunity or immunizations. But really immunity starts on the inside, in the gut. And the gut is really rapidly developing over those first years, that early period. And we really need to have a good balance of bugs, the good bugs and the bad bugs, in the gut to have this normal, what we call colonization during that infancy period. And so if we've got a normal colonization in the gut over that time, then we really are developing a healthy, robust immune system. And that's crucial from a long-term health perspective.
Yeah, okay. So what is the role of the gut and immunity? Because there's a lot of talk about gut. What is the gut and what's the link?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The gut is, it's an amazing organism. Obviously, it's a large organism in our body, and we're starting to hear a lot more about the role of gut health in the media.
It's quite hot at the moment, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people acknowledge, and the Optimal Toddler Study found this as well, in terms of we're appreciating the role of gut health in terms of adult gut health, but in terms of infant gut health, I think 3 in 5 parents were still unaware of that link with infant gut health and nutrition and long-term health outcomes. Because what we're finding is, or what we know now, is that infant colonization of the gut is so crucial to establish a healthy, robust immune system and reduce the risk of later allergies, other diseases such as obesity. And we're just starting to learn all of this now, and we're needing to get the word out basically, because a really good start will make a big difference later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
No pressure. Get it right while they're young.
Wasn't enough to think
No,
about.
it wasn't.
Exactly.
Just to add on to that, it's probably until the age of 3 we've got to really get it right.
Yeah, right.
Because at the age of 3, then it becomes, the gut microbiome becomes more adult-like.
Yeah.
So those first few years are crucial.
Okay.
And nutrition plays a key role in that.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
So Nick, tell us, what is that link between immunity and nutrition?
Well, you've mentioned it already. We kind of have 3 things. We have nutrition, we have the gut, and we have immunity. And I think one of the biggest challenges, or certainly for me as a father, I never really started thinking about immunity or the immune system until it was time for a vaccination or someone got sick, because you're so focused on all the other things like the milestones, the development, the walking, talking, all these kind of things. But actually, they're very, very closely connected. The immune system is quite immature when you're born, but actually up to 80% of the immune cells are located in or around the gut.
Right.
And you already asked the question, what do we mean when we say the gut? Well, the gut actually is anywhere that you ingest, digest or absorb food, and that includes the mouth. So that's the first place that digestion begins.
Yeah.
So you see there's a very early connection between food, the immune system, and the gut.
Yeah.
So it starts really very early on.
Okay, all right. So that's why the right nutrition at the right time is required for the development of the immune system. That's right?
That's right, yeah. And you often hear, I think, people talk about specific nutrients and special or magic ingredients. And to be fair, the literature, the research does show that some specific nutrients have the potential to impact the development of the immune system more than others, and often that's things like fibre, vitamin D, iron, and you probably hear a lot more. I think the thing to remember here is there's no such thing as a magic bullet or a silver bullet or a magic ingredient.
Yeah.
You should be getting all these nutrients from a healthy and varied, balanced diet. I think around this topic, people do have some concern, and it's sometimes mentioned, it actually came up in the Aboriginal Toddler survey, that people do find it challenging. If that's the case, if you do think there's a concern over nutrition intake, I'd recommend speaking to a healthcare professional or a paediatric dietitian such as Karina.
Absolutely, yeah. So what does a healthy and balanced diet look like?
Really good question.
For a toddler.
Yeah, really good question. What is that? Well, look, it's never going to be perfect. We try, but really, I think the most we can do is recognise that they have small tummies, so we need to offer them food regularly throughout the day. So a toddler's tummy can be up to 5 times smaller than an adult.
Yeah.
Yet their needs, their nutritional needs, are up to 3 times more.
Right. Okay.
So sometimes it's a real challenge to get it all in, and that's why we need to offer them small regular meals and snacks so that they have the opportunity to fill up at those times. And they may fill up better at some meals and almost eat nothing at others, but that's fine. That's them listening to their bodies, and that's normal. Yeah. So what we really want to make sure is that when we're offering them food, it's nutritious all of the time, because up to 50% of their nutrition can come from snacks. Yeah. So their snacks need to be wholesome and healthy as well as their main meals. So really we should be offering them a variety of the food groups. So it needs to include a protein. So that's either from an animal source or a vegetarian source. Then we need to.
So by protein, you mean like chicken, meat,
egg, fish, or it could be vegetarian source. It could be legumes. It could be nuts. It could be seeds, whole grains. They can contribute importantly to a vegetarian diet. But a protein, either animal or non-animal sources, and then whole grain carbohydrates. So good quality carbohydrates, not just rice crackers. And then and so we've got the protein with the carbohydrate, and then also we need to have a really good appearance of plant foods. So we're talking about fruits or vegetables, nuts, seeds, and again legumes can feature in that. But if we're making sure that we have a lot of those wholesome plant foods on the plate, that will provide really valuable prebiotics. And prebiotics are natural fibres. And these prebiotics are found naturally in foods. We don't have to take them in a supplement form. And what they do is they nourish our gut and provide amazing nutrition to our gut and boost our immune system. So that's so important that we're offering our children these foods regularly, so that they're naturally boosting their immune system and nourishing their bodies that way.
So what would be a healthy morning tea, for example? They have breakfast and it's 10 o'clock and they're starving. What would you...
so what I would give them offer is making sure, again, you've got a good mixture of those three. So I think platters are really good in that scenario. So have a platter where you would put some healthy fruits or vegetables, so chopped up veggies, maybe a fruit option. You might put some nuts there, depending on whether they're at school or not. If they were at home, then you could, but no nuts at school. And the protein, it may be just as simple as a bit of cheese or a bit of chopped up boiled egg, something like that. So just making sure you've got a variety. And whole grain carbohydrates, it may just be, you know, some whole grain crackers, or it just may be a little bit of leftover pasta. So it could be, you know, anything really, but making sure it's wholesome and trying to limit the refined processed packaged foods.
Okay. So on to the topic of fussy eaters, because I know I've had 3 fussy eaters along the years, and you know, still have challenges today. So what are your tips for what is a fussy eater, and what are your tips for dealing with those that simply refuse those foods? You want to give them healthy food, but it's hard.
It is really tricky. It's tricky because they are growing so fast, and they've got these huge needs, but they learn very quickly that food is one way that they control us, and they really grab onto that. And I see so many parents in my room, in my clinics, that are just so stressed out because their children are just, you know, children have got them wrapped around their little finger basically. And it's really challenging. So there's some clear strategies in the research that have shown help to develop what we call competent eaters. And competent eaters are ones that develop over time. It's no quick fix, and these things take absolutely, you know, months and years to create competent eaters. We can't expect them to turn a corner and be amazing eaters by the age of, you know, 5. It may be that they're older than that. So we've got to, I guess, take the pressure off ourselves from that perspective. But one of the 3 clear strategies in the research is showing us is, number 1, have structure. So structured meal and snack time. So it's not just a rolling smorgasbord buffet of food throughout the day, chasing them around the house. So having structure, so they learn that there are meal and snack times, and that they do get hungry in between, but that's normal, and that's important for our bodies as well. So that there's structured meal and snack times. And the second one is to really, really, really emphasize eat with them. Because again, with the patients that I see a lot of the time, say for example dinner, mum might want to wait till dad gets home, which is great, you know, it's great for their relationship, but at the same time we need to be sitting down with our children, role modelling these good behaviours. And so sitting at the IKEA table with your knees up, even if you don't eat your full dinner, but just have some of their dinner with them. Eating with them is so important, because children learn from us. They need to learn all about life from us. And food is no different. So if they see us eating healthy, wholesome, you know, foods, then they're naturally inquisitive and interested, and they will want to try the foods that you're eating naturally over time. So it's really important that they're seeing you eat the really healthy foods, and not that we just plonk them down while we're busy doing something else and say, you know, eat that. So that's really, really important, and probably doesn't happen enough.
I think I'm quite guilty of that, because I'm in that situation. My husband doesn't get home till after 7, so the kids probably eat about 5:30, then 7 o'clock he gets home. We try to get the kids done. Sometimes we don't eat till 8:30, and even from my perspective, I'm like, I don't want to be eating dinner at 8:30, so I go to bed an hour later. And you're going to bed, it's actually better for me to be eating with them, and I would prefer to do that. So it's good that that's what I should be doing. So sorry, husband. Exactly. Sorry, husband. Your dinner will be microwave when you get home.
Do you still use the IKEA table when the kids aren't there?
No, we've progressed from IKEA. We're onto fantastic furniture.
So anyway, so the third factor, I guess, strategy to developing competent eaters, sorry, as Richard my ward doesn't call up there, is no food wars. Try and remain food neutral. Try and enjoy the food. Talk about, you know, what was the best part of your day? What are you grateful for? Rather than eat the broccoli, or that's really important, or eat that, otherwise you're not getting any of that. So try and just take away all the food talk and just sit and enjoy food together. Put healthy food on their plate, and they're expected to, you know, tolerate it on their plate and give it a go. What we do say in the, you know, the fussy eating discussions is put something on there that you know that they will like, but then other things that you would like them to try. But if you're eating the same foods and role modelling those behaviours, then they're more likely to try it. Getting them to self-serve sometimes is also useful, but a key strategy is just no food wars, remain food neutral, and try not to focus too much, because again, the more you focus on it, then they know that they're going to be able to get a rise out of you by not doing it. So So there's three strategies.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
What I do with, because I've got slightly older kids as well,
Yeah.
mine are 3, 6 and 8.
Yeah.
With the older ones now, if they're not eating the broccoli or the carrots, I try to tell them why they're good for them, or
Yeah.
there's this fish is really good for your brains,
Yeah.
or broccoli's a superfood, and
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that, am I doing damage by telling them the value of the
I think
food,
it's
or is
useful.
it putting more pressure on those healthy foods?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
Just be careful about how much you push it. I think it's good to educate them.
Yeah.
And I think it's also good to show that you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And make foods tasty, like put extra virgin olive oil or lemon juice on the
Yeah.
broccoli, and make it tasty.
Yeah.
And because especially if you're eating it as well, you want it to be
You wanna
tasty.
enjoy it,
So
exactly.
no, I think you can talk about
Yeah.
the benefits of food, but don't overdo it too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, listening to the discussion, it sounds quite normal. You know, I hear the strategies, and actually I'm sitting here thinking, on some days I fail miserably on all
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
But you mentioned already, it's like a long-term thing, right?
That's
It's,
right.
it's something that's not going to happen
Yeah.
overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some days you might be a little bit more emotional
Yeah.
than others, and you put a
Oh
little bit
yeah,
of pressure
I'm
on.
guilty
So
as well. I
yeah.
had a fussy eater. My first was a fussy eater. She's getting there. She's
Yeah.
6. She's getting there, but she's still. And I find that, and again, in a lot of the patients I see, it's always the first one that's worse because they're the one
Yeah.
that's more
All my experiences.
mollycoddled.
Yeah.
But like we're all guilty of it, and I don't always practice what I preach. Everyone.
You know what you should be
gets
doing.
stressed. Yeah. But they're the strategies that do work in eventually developing confidence.
Yeah.
But it is a long process, and take the pressure off yourself. Try and stick to those strategies. But remember, you're in it for the long haul. It's not something that's going to be fixed by the age of. They're not going to be eating all the vegetables by the age of 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some magic children
Yeah.
might be, but
Some amazing
it's not
children.
the majority.
Yeah, all right. The other big question that we see a lot in our Facebook group, and it's always changing, is the age at which you should be starting solids.
Yeah.
4 to 6 months is always the range,
Yep.
but is it better to do it earlier or
Yep.
later, or
Yeah, that's a
how
really
does it
good
work?
question. And please, it's not a competition.
Yeah.
Even one of my neighbours the other day was talking about her mother's group, and it always seems like such a competition.
the first babies
First
that
one,
start
just
eating
like
is
nailed it. Yeah,
wow.
I know. But each child's different, and every child's going to develop at their own pace. And their developmental signs of readiness is the most important thing to look for. So can they hold their head upright unassisted? Have they lost that natural sort of tongue extrusion? Are they interested in looking for food when you're at the table? They're trying to grab food, out of your hand. All of those signs are really good cues that they are starting to be more developmentally ready to have food. And if they're developmentally ready on the outside, then they're going to be more developmentally ready on the inside.
Yeah.
And what we need to be, I guess, clear about is it's not before 4 months and not after 6 months.
Okay.
But in that window is
Yeah.
fine, but not before 4, not after 6.
Okay.
If they're breastfed and they're not starting until 6 months and 1 day, that's fine, but they need to be mindful, mums need to be mindful that maternal iron stores through breast milk start to run out. So the baby's not going to be getting much iron from the breast milk, and so the first food needs to be high in iron, and that's something that the National Infant Feeding Guidelines is quite firm on, just to prevent the risk of iron deficiency.
Yeah.
So if they're
So
formula
what might
fed,
that be?
like a 9 fortified rice cereal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On there's a really good first foods booklet. So on my website, smartbite.com.au, on the free info section, there's a really good first foods introducing solids. So it goes through textures, food types, everything. There's lots of other good info on that section too. But that's a really important, I guess, thing to note if they're being breastfed, just to reduce the risk of iron deficiency. Because we do see it a fair bit in toddlers, and it's something that we just need to try and prevent. Yeah.
Okay.
There's probably, sorry to interrupt, but there's probably another point that's quite interesting to talk about here, I think, which is it's connected because as the toddler gets older a little bit, they start to drink milk, so particularly cow's milk.
Yeah.
And I guess that in turn is kind of connected to this fussy eater type picky eater.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's worth clarifying, and when we talk about fussy eaters or picky eaters, what we actually mean is that there's a concern, that it's usually a parental concern, that the toddler isn't eating or drinking enough, or they're worried about the overall intake. And that quite often comes up with cow's milk. And cow's milk has a legitimate place in the diet, but we do know that cow's milk is low or absent even in some nutrients, particularly iron, vitamin D, and some fibres, which we already talked about. So I guess the issue is if you're concerned, if there is a picky and fussy eater and you're using a lot of cow's milk, you might not be getting all those nutrients, or there might be a concern over nutritional gaps.
The kids filling up on milk and not having
yes,
room for
I
their
think so,
meals and snacks.
Yeah, which I probably imagine is something you experience a bit in your clinic, Karina.
Yeah, I do see that, and you see the milkaholics that drink, up to a litre or more a day.
Oh wow!
And and I've heard of 1,500 meals. One nurse rang me and said this child.
How old is the child?
Yeah, 15 months old, and it can really displace food and important
they're not going to be hungry,
nutrients.
are they? So.
No, and they're not going to get the vitamins and minerals and the fibre to nourish their gut. And so we really need to cap it at probably 350, 400 mils of milk.
Okay.
So that they are able
By what
to...
age is that? Because obviously when they're a baby, they're drinking milk all the time. By the 12 months, how much?
Well, probably by the age of 2 to 3, they shouldn't be having more than that 400 mils.
Okay, so
because
2 cups a day.
Because otherwise they will be displacing other valuable nutrition. And we know that their needs are higher, for those nutrients, so they need to be getting from food.
Yeah.
We don't want to be creating the next generation of milkaholics.
No, that would be awful.
Yeah.
All right, so another question is introducing new foods. How is this best done?
Yeah, so I think that definitely the rules have changed over the years.
Okay.
And it used to be, 1 a week. And
see if any allergy rises up.
So
boring.
I think it's still valuable to do one new food at a time in case there is a reaction, so you know what that is.
Yeah.
But in terms of reducing allergy risk, the national guidelines are now that we need to get in those allergenic foods earlier.
Okay.
So from that 4 to 6 month period when you're starting solids, we need to be getting in nuts, we need to be getting in eggs, wheat, soy, fish, all of those sort of allergenic foods, because there's that window of opportunity from that sort of 6 to 9 month period where it needs to be getting in small repeated doses. Don't do one big dose and then leave it for 3 months and then give them another whack, because then that's going to increase their risk of allergy. But small repeated doses and getting it in earlier rather than later is what we should be doing.
Okay.
And in terms of consistencies, there's 2 schools of thought in terms of one group does the standard puree to lumps to thin food, and that's definitely what the national guidelines are, still are. And then there's the group that followed the baby-led weaning philosophy.
Yeah. So do you explain the baby-led weaning, what people do with that?
So it's where they, I guess, give more independence to the child right from the get-go in providing non-choking risk. So we don't want anything small and hard, but where they will offer soft finger foods that the baby can actually start to pick up and eat themselves. The only risk with that is, can they get enough volume in? And that's, I guess, the main concern from that philosophy. But again, it's worth researching and working on what you think sits right for you and your family. And if you're worried, then just stick with what the national recommendations are. And as I said, that First Foods booklet goes through all of that normal introduction and what you should be looking for and the types of foods that you should be offering.
Okay. Yeah. Great. So I think we probably have some time for some questions. See if there's any that have come through. I don't have any that I can see on my phone at the moment, but if you do have questions, now is the time. We've got a few questions that we've seen quite a lot in the North Shore Mums Facebook group that I would like to ask you both. Sure. But yeah, please, if you've got anything, don't be shy, post it up and we will answer it live for you. So obviously many of us are busy and juggling a million things. So the whole issue of pre-packaged food for babies and toddlers, are we doing damage to our children? Is it okay to give them from time to time? We don't all have time to be making fresh purees
for
every meal of the day.
Yep. No, look, and I gave some to my daughter as well. And I think especially when you're travelling, that's a really useful time to use those foods that you know that they like, especially when you're travelling overseas, and you can, it's safe. From a food hygiene perspective, it's safe. But in terms of everyday use, I think, definitely it's something that can play a part in your normal, well, not normal, I think they're probably reserved for times when you're needing a nutritious food but you are on the move.
Yeah.
I think that if they're wholesome foods in the package, then great. So like a pureed meat, vegetables, or veggie risotto or something like that. I think that's fine. Obviously, something that's been sitting in a packet, the nutrient composition won't be as wonderful as something that's come fresh off the shelf.
Yeah.
As long as I guess the fruits and vegetables
Yeah.
have been sitting in the fridge. It's hard to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, stay away from the packaged foods that are processed refined carbohydrates, like all the rice puffed things. I think that's what I have most of a problem with from a snacking perspective, from that sort of one.
And why not that stuff?
Well, because there's not much there's not much nutritional value.
Yeah.
So I think the baby food where it's meat and vegetables and it's good stuff, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're using those sometimes, I wouldn't do it 3 meals a day, but I think they're fine sometimes. But probably what I have more of a problem with is the puffed rice things that are coated with yogurt that are still quite laden with sugar.
Yeah.
They're not really offering your child much nutrition. No fibre, nothing for bowel health.
Empty calories.
Empty calories.
Fillers.
And their sugar levels tend to go up more quickly, and then they're hungry again, and sort of they get this sharp tooth-like effect with their blood sugar levels, and it's not really setting them up to be healthy.
Yeah. Okay. Another big question we see a lot is when kids start daycare, they get sick all the time.
Yeah.
What can we do as parents to help them for those first few months? Because it's relentless, really, isn't it? The illnesses that they get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's quite normal, right? I think we've probably all experienced this. Your child goes to daycare and they come back within the first 2 or 3 days and they're quite sick or they have an infection. And essentially what's happening is your child is going from like a bug environment that they're used to another environment with different bugs. So that immune system is still building, we mentioned earlier. So they're just exposed to a different set of bugs. And nutrition can help. We talked about nutrition and the way it influences the immune system. Again, I would probably come back to the point and say that if your child is having a mixed, varied, balanced diet, incorporating all the foods that we've discussed today, it should be okay, and it is normal to have a few more infections because you're in that different environment, the old runny nose or whatever. But I would say again, if you're concerned over the nutritional intake and perhaps there's a persistent or a high number of infections, speak to your healthcare professional.
I think a lot of people see those multivitamins that have, the kids' ones that are covered in sugar, and I know I've bought them. They're like, "We have a multivitamin." I'm like, "Just one a day." They're kind of like a lolly, but they enjoy it. I think, well, it's getting the multivitamins in. Am I being a bad parent again by doing that?
I think from what I would say is probably important to establish whether your concern is real or not. So I would always say, and probably Karina, don't exclude any massive foods or food groups unless you've been advised to.
No.
And if you are concerned over nutritional gaps, maybe speak to a healthcare professional, because drinks like perhaps a little type of milk drink might help bridge those gaps, because they do have a lot more nutrients than something like cow's milk, for example. But it's quite normal. You go to daycare, you get a few colds, but I'd say again, if you're concerned and there's lots more infections, perhaps seek medical advice.
Okay, cool.
I guess from my perspective, I think my first port of call would be to make sure that child was getting all the good stuff. So getting wholesome foods. But if a parent was to ask me, as a last resort, could I try probiotics or some vitamin C? I think, there's probably a place for that.
Okay.
Sometimes. But I think
ideally fill it with diet. Basically.
Well, you can get loads of vitamin C from broccoli and kiwi fruit, for example, and vitamin and oranges. So trying to push the real food first. But there are some nutrients that research shows can help support, an immune system when it's down.
And is there such thing as too much fruit for a child? I mean, you kind of think, they're good for them, and I know my children are addicted to fruit. I think, but then there's other schools of thought that I've seen, you should only give them however much fruit, and it's like, another thing to think about. You think you're doing the right thing, and then...
Well, I think you could do worse than fruit. But again, I guess it all comes back to, are they displacing anything else because they're having that much fruit? But I guess it depends on how much. But I think fruit's a really healthy thing to be offering a number of times a day. So
Yeah.
I think, you could do far worse than
Okay.
overeat.
All right.
Habits as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you see, we like to feel guilty about everything, don't we?
Oh,
We just
much
constantly.
parents
Yeah.
guilt.
Yeah, and ideally, we all want to feed our kids really, really good food,
Yeah.
don't we? And
Yeah.
the challenge is getting them to
How?
eat it, and I think it's very frustrating when, I've made dishes and you spent the last half an hour preparing something,
yeah.
and oh, it's so good, I've actually made something fresh, and then you give it to them and they're like,
They throw it on the floor.
Yeah.
not interested, Mum, and it's it's just like, oh, I'm never cooking for you.
No, I know.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It's
We
demoralising.
just persist.
Yeah, well, my son had a 15-minute tantrum last week because he wasn't happy about the dinner I served, but he eventually got over it and
Yeah.
he ate some.
Okay.
But you just got to be prepared for a bit of. But again, don't buy into it. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just soldier on. Don't acknowledge it.
So what is the tactic at dinner time when they don't eat your dinner, and then an hour you just put them to bed, they've done their tea, I'm hungry, Mum? What do you do then? Is it like you should be putting their dinner aside if they haven't eaten their dinner? What if they really hate their dinner, and then do you what do you do?
It comes back to when you offer them dinner, offer them something on their plate that they do like and
Okay.
can fill up on, but then
Yeah.
offer them some foods that you want them to be eating and that you're eating and you're
Yeah.
trying to teach them about.
Okay.
But if they haven't eaten much and they've left the table, then I put a cover on it, put it in the fridge, and then if they're hungry before bed, you could re-offer it to them.
Yeah.
And you may say grab a banana, but I would be definitely quite firm on saying you're hungry because you haven't had enough dinner.
Okay.
I definitely would not be offering them a separate option. Like
No.
I wouldn't offer them a peanut butter sandwich
Okay.
or something like
Yeah.
that. I would still potentially offer them, if they didn't eat their dinner, fine, we're not making wars over it, and then everyone else is having some yogurt and a banana. I think I would still offer them that.
Okay.
But again, if they're going to bed hungry, then I'd be reinforcing, well, you didn't eat a proper dinner. You can either have a bit of that or you're
Yeah.
waiting till breakfast.
Okay. So it's okay for them to go to bed hungry?
Yeah, I think it's
As long as they
And
sleep.
then about consequences
Yeah,
as well
yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I tried to take that approach.
Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't
not
always
always
work.
easy.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's right. And
Yeah.
my son's been known to go and grab another banana because he's hungry. But
Yeah.
but on the whole, he's a good eater. So I guess you just got to weigh it up.
Yeah.
But it is hard, and it's never perfect. Life's not perfect.
No.
But it's about just trying to do the best you can and be reassured as a parent that you're on the right track. I think that's a lot of it. It's
Yeah.
just having confidence as a parent to be firmer
Mm-hmm.
and know that
Yeah.
what you're doing is actually helping to develop competent eating.
Ultimately, it will make it easier in the long run.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, the division of responsibility of eating is, I guess it was originally created by an American lady called Ellen Satter.
Mm-hmm.
We could probably put the link on North Shore Mums
Okay.
because she's got a lot of really good information for the general population worldwide on managing fussy eating and that
Okay.
whole division of responsibility where it's the parents' responsibility to decide when and what foods,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's the child's responsibility to decide which one and how much.
Okay.
So there's a lot of good information out there
Okay.
for her website as well.
Cool. We do have some questions.
Great.
This one is from Lucy, who's actually the editor of North Shore Mums, and she had a baby about 2 months ago. So her question revolves around, love to know more about keeping my newborn healthy when the toddler is covered in daycare germs. What can she do to protect her newborns? I know he's been a little bit sick and ended up in hospital, and around a germy toddler that comes home. What?
Well, I think from my perspective,
Yeah.
breastfeeding is the best thing you can do from a immunoprotection
Yeah.
perspective because breast milk has a huge number of wonderful immune boosting
Yeah.
molecules. So that's probably the best thing you can do. But if you can't breastfeed, then choosing an appropriate formula that has, I would say, some good immune boosting nutrients in there. And I think probiotics probably is one of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question from
Sorry,
Bianca.
did you have anything to say
No,
about
no,
that?
I say maybe seek help, advice from a healthcare professional if you're concerned. If you're really concerned,
Okay. Any tips for getting kids to eat their meals faster? I have a kid that would happily take an hour to eat his meal, even if he really likes his food.
Yeah, right.
Get out the whip, or
Well, first of all, I would just make sure that I was positive that there was no physiological reason why
okay.
they were so. I mean, I'm not saying that the speech pathologist needs to assess the child,
Yeah.
but do they have proper tongue or motor movement? So is there a reason why their chewing and swallowing is so slow? Are there distractions at the table? Because there should be no distractions at the table, no screens or anything like that. But I would be limiting the meal time to probably 30 minutes max, because an hour is quite a long time.
It's cold by the end.
And yeah, generally the child's lost interest by then. So I would stop it I would stop it at half an hour and keep it, I guess, if they wanted to then have it at their next snack. Good question.
Okay, another question for you, Karina. In relation to nutrition, how many times a day is it considered normal for an 18-month-old to poo?
To poo?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah, look, I think, it's very variable.
Right.
But I think if they're on the pooier end, then I think up to 4 times a day would be okay. But if it was more than 4, I would probably be speaking to your doctor about that or a paediatrician.
Okay.
Because it's becoming a bit more excessive. And I guess it depends on the consistency too. So if it was quite loose and mucousy, then there may be a bit of a food intolerance or a malabsorption happening. So you might then want to investigate a bit more. But if it was of a normal consistency and they just pooed normally 3 or 4 times a day, then that could still be considered relatively normal. That should reduce,
Probably you would look for a change as well, right? You see, there's normal and there's normal for the child.
Yeah,
you know, if they've suddenly gone from 1 to 4, and you've either introduced a new food or something else has happened, you know, that's a change. So as well as normal, so I'd say normal for that child. Quite useful.
Yeah, I've had one child that was a 1 a day, strictly 1 a day,
Yeah.
and then
Same
others
time.
that exactly, and
Yeah.
other ones that go 3 or 4 times a day. And I guess, as you said, it's
for them.
normal for them,
Yeah.
but
That's a good point. If there has been a change, so sometimes like a really bad bug or gut gastro can then strip the lining, and then that can change the environment. And then that can obviously increase stool frequency. So if that's happened, then I would speak to a healthcare professional.
Another question from Michelle. She asks, how do you get kids interested in trying new foods when all they want is the standard chicken or sausages?
Yeah, great question.
New food, come on.
New food. So again, I think it comes back to getting kids involved in cooking. So buy a little knife that they're not going to chop their finger off when they're helping you chop up the foods, or teach them to help you grate things, or just get them involved more. So if they're more involved in the cooking and preparation, then they've got more buy-in, they're more likely to be interested in eating it. It doesn't always work, but again, it's definitely a strategy that's been shown to help develop sort of more competent eaters. And the other thing I would suggest would be to perhaps have all the foods on the table with little tongs, coloured things, make it fun. Like kids like fun, we all like fun, let's be honest. And it can be fun. You can make faces out of things on plates. I'm not suggesting throw spaghetti bolognese across the table. But
we've tried that one as well.
That happens naturally.
But no, make it fun and get them involved in serving as well. And again, if they've got more ownership, it can help empower them to eat more. But role modelling, eating together, all of those strategies will also help to, again, it's not a quick fix, but eventually it should help to improve their variety.
And a question from me is, how much should you put on their plate? Is it psychologically better to give them a small amount of food and then they go, that's manageable, and then they'll ask for more? Or do you overwhelm them with a large plate of food? Like, how do you know how much you should be feeding them, strategy-wise?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, the amount of protein that they need per day, like the amount of, say, meat would be the equivalent to the size of the palm of their hand. So if you think about that as their sort of daily meat requirements, you wouldn't want to make it bigger than that. And if they were having it sort of spread out through the day, then it might even be smaller. So I think it would be better to have a smaller portion that then they can ask for more or serve more, rather than be overwhelmed by a large amount.
We certainly try. My son he's coming out now particularly fussy. We tried that exact strategy and actually we found that worked quite well. So using the smaller one, and then he starts to enjoy it and ask for more. We also tried the strategy of involving in the cooking. I think the problem was we started cooking with banana cake. So then we had to move to sugar-free banana cake and then some other things. But that also, from personal experience, that also worked quite well. So, but it does take some persistence and persistence and mesh. You've got to get over that.
Shredded coconut,
Exactly. If you've got the patience.
That's it. And sometimes putting in
and you don't always have the time, but
No, and that's another thing. But it will help to develop an easier life for you.
Ultimately. And it's nice, they'll be on MasterChef children, you never know.
You can at the same time teach them how to hoover as well. So you can do the tidying up as well. It's 2 for 1.
Exactly.
That's an English term.
Vacuum.
It is.
Sorry, yes, vacuum.
Indeed. Well, we don't have any more questions, so unless you've got any other pearls that you would like to share before we wrap up, anything else?
No. I always say, actually, I think it's nice, we have, I would say, a lot of access to information and knowledge, but we've talked about it already. We don't always get it right, having the knowledge and the information doesn't guarantee success.
No, and that's quite reassuring, I think, for us parents who are pulling our hair out, and you guys know everything, but you have struggles too. Well, you know a lot more, like with reason.
Access to information.
And I think, all of us, as I said before, want to feed our kids really good, nutritious meals. It's just the challenge of getting them to eat it and knowing the strategies and top tips for getting that good food into them.
Yeah, and it's about taking the pressure off us, because we all try so hard, and just going back to the basic strategies that we know will eventually work, and just sticking to those, and trying to stay away from the battlefield.
Exactly. No one wants a battlefield.
No one wants a battlefield.
Exactly.
No, not at all.
All right.
We could summarise if you want top three points.
Top 3 points?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Great. Yeah, no worries. So I think I've pretty much said it, but I'll say it again. No, that's fine. So immunity starts on the inside. So we need to make sure that we've got those good sort of, grounding of developing of a good gut microbiome, so the natural bacteria colony in our gut, and the way that we do that is through good nutrition. I mean, there are other factors along the way that help it, but nutrition is a key factor there. We need to make sure that we're giving children 5 to 6 opportunities to eat per day, so that they can fill up when they're hungriest, and they're not going to eat, the same. They're not like robots. They're not going to eat the same at each meal or snack. And that's another thing to, take home. If they've filled up, in the first 4 meals and snacks, then they may not eat a big dinner. That's okay, because they filled up at those others. So that's why we need to be offering them those wholesome foods at other meals and snacks as well. And role modelling, sitting with them, eating with them.
That's what I want to start doing.
That's probably another key.
Cool. Nick, anything?
My top 3, I guess, think about nutrition and immunity early. It starts very, very early. We talked about superfoods. I'd say just aim for a varied and balanced diet. And then I would probably say, if you do have a concern, speak to a healthcare professional over nutritional, those dietary gaps that we talked about. But otherwise, that would probably be it.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, everyone.
Lots of fun. And if you've got any other questions, pop them up, and we'll try to get to them afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.